Right. We all know that when it's up against a holiday, long weekend, you've checked out long before you've clocked out.
You're listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, where HIPAA and humor collide to make learning fun. Your delightful hosts are Donna Grindle and David Sims. Relax. HIPAA help is on the way.
Welcome to episode 313 of the Help Me with HIPAA podcast. My name is David Sims of HIPAA for MSPs and Security First IT. And joining me is Donna Grindle of Card. Good afternoon, Donna.
Hello, David. So nice to see you again on a Friday.
I know. It's always nice to see me on a Friday. So today's topic, we're going to be talking about something that, quite frankly, keeps me up at night and scares me to death.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, we had an attack, a ransomware attack, I'll say aimed at MSPs over the weekend, the holiday weekend, July 4th weekend. And of course, there's a lot of fallout when that happens. We've talked about this happening before. It was kind of reminiscent to the SolarWinds incident, but with a different vendor. So we're going to dive down into that. This is an active incident, so we are jumping back and forth between what we know now and things that are actually coming out right before we hit record. So, bear with us as we go through this. Typically, we record as the dust has already settled and we already know all the facts. But in this case, we don't yet know some stuff. So we're going to tell you what we know so far, and hopefully give you some tips on how to avoid the fallout being so bad should this happen to you. But first, before we do that, I do want to thank everybody for listening. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please share it out. And as always, if you don't tell anybody about it. Just
there you go.
Quietly go away. Or listen to some other ones, and you might like some of the other ones. But anyway, thanks for those who do share it out. Thanks to our donors. We definitely appreciate your support. And don't forget to check us out on our website, helpmewithhipaa.com. Lots of resources there. We also have an app that has resources for each and every episode that you can download and use it as a training tool. So don't forget that.
There's an app for that.
There is an app for that. So the HIPAA Bootcamp, August virtual edition, full it is, as Yoda would say. However, you can still let us know if you're interested. If we have any opening slots come open, we can potentially get you in there if we have anything open. Otherwise, we can go ahead and put you on the list for the next one, at least letting you know when that will be and trying to get you started on that. And as I mentioned last week, if you're an organization that has to put in for a budget for next year, then you want to go ahead and budget for that as well.
Yes, you do. Just go ahead, because you want it. It's one of those kind of things.
Yeah, and our next one may be live again. I don't know. We'll have to look at that.
Well, they're all live in person.
Okay.
Versus
it will be a live instead of live.
Okay.
You get to touch me on my shoulder. He's real.
You're so wrong.
Yeah. Somebody asked me one time, is that artificial intelligence? I'm like, all my intelligence is artificial.
Yes, it is.
It comes from somewhere else. All right. So I guess we should say that our HIPAA
Say what?
is not going to be a segment. It's going to be the entire show.
Well, HIPAA doesn't talk about ransomware,
No, not specifically. We do have some guidance about ransomware, from the HIPAA police people.
But, there's a lot of things that HIPAA doesn't talk about that everybody's pretty sure it does talk about. But, if you learned everything you needed to know from social media, there again is the artificial intelligence option.
HIPAA doesn't say anything about ransomware. Therefore, it is not something I have to deal with.
There you go.
Wrong answer, but it is an answer. So let's talk a little bit about what happened. So we gave everybody a warning a couple of episodes ago or so that the holiday weekend was coming, and Donna said, yes, that means that, we're likely to see an attack. And guess what? She was right.
Every summer and every, holiday season at the end of the year, from Thanksgiving to New Year's, and then Memorial Day to Labor Day, with a peak on Independence Day.
Yep. So just for those who don't know, the reason why that is because there's you have less staff on a holiday weekend. People are taking long weekends. So, they got an extra day, the criminals do, to work. So if you don't know until you come back in the office on a Tuesday because you took Monday off, or maybe you came back on a Monday, but you took Friday off, either way, there's just not as many people watching things. And unfortunately, because people are doing other things, they're probably not watching alerts that are coming in and stuff like that. There's all kind of reasons why this is a very, very profitable time for the bad guys to attack.
Well, and they know that you're in a hurry, so they can catch you and, this is urgent. You got to do it. So there you go. You've been sucked in because, it's one more thing I've got to deal with before I can go to the beach.
Yeah.
So.
Right. We all know that when it's up against a holiday, long weekend, you've checked out long before you've clocked out.
Or vacation. So many people, this is their vacation month. July and August, this is where it hits.
Yeah.
So don't think that you can let your guard down. In fact, if your guard is not already up, it's time to jack it up. Bring the guards out, line them up, give them extra pay, whatever you got to do in your brain to make you be leery of anything you see or hear.
Yep. And even though this is an attack on MSPs, if you're listening, you're not in an MSP, this still affects you. So don't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Because this actually affected more non-MSPs than it did MSPs.
Yeah. When an MSP is hit, it's not about them. It's about their clients.
Right. And
it wasn't just this case. I want to make sure that everybody understands we have multiple clients dealing with issues right now that has nothing to do with Kaseya. It has to do with attacks that are happening actively at this time.
Right. All right, let's dive into it and let's talk about the attack and what happened.
What had happened was.
Yeah.
So do you want to go all the way back to what we've learned in some of these articles, or we start with on July 2nd, everything started to go awry in the afternoon. I started getting alerts and emails, and I know you did, and we're texting each other, and we're messaging. I'm messaging Gary at Black Talon. He's like, yeah, everybody was spreading the word within the nerds.
Oh yeah, the IT groups that I'm in, it was spreading like wildfire as far as the news, not the attack, but the news was spreading like wildfire.
News. Yeah.
So, that's the good thing about it is when you're part of information sharing groups like that, then you get alerts quickly.
Yeah.
Which is one of the things that you should be a part of in some form or fashion. You should be part of some type of information sharing group or have a vendor that's sharing information with you or whatever. But yes, we saw that happening. So for those that are in the IT world, you probably know a lot about the initial stuff that we're going to talk about, but we're going to cover it anyway because not all listeners are IT.
Yes. So the news was that this vendor of software that is used by IT companies to support their clients, the vendor was attacked by stealing their connections, if you will. They kind of piggybacked onto what was already there using vulnerabilities that were in the software to allow them in, that then let them spread these attacks to every endpoint of an MSP that they could infect.
Mm-hmm.
So, the news quickly was Kaseya is under attack. All the MSP people started, like you, wanting to vomit. And and then the news came out that it was only the on-prem version. So what does that mean, David? Does it really mean there's a server on your premises? No.
For the MSPs, in most cases, yeah.
Yeah.
So the on-prem portion would be, the MSP is, instead of paying for the cloud version of this, they paid for the version they could run on their own servers. And so they have a server either in a data center somewhere or whatever, but basically they have hardware they're running this software on, and they're responsible for keeping the software patched and keeping the hardware up and running, the infrastructure pieces of it and all that. I don't know how many Kaseya has doing that versus the SaaS model, the software as a service, the cloud model. But I would say most people do that. Most people probably put it in the cloud. They don't want to deal with infrastructure and all that kind of stuff. But there are times where, for various reasons, where it might make more sense to not do that. But anyway, that's the limit of the attack that we know so far, is that it was only for those people who have the on-prem servers.
Well, what we know is those were the ones being hit.
Yeah.
And there's varying numbers. I've seen anywhere from like 50 to 60 different MSPs, but who knows what the real number is of people that have or were using that. And of those, how many got hit, because they would have to get to those servers. But essentially, if you were a client of one of those MSPs and you had a computer that was being monitored by one of those MSPs, it was hit with ransomware. Is basically what happened.
Yeah.
And again, the numbers are very broad. I've seen like 800 to 1,500 clients. It's huge when you think that many people were hit simultaneously.
Yeah, not endpoints, clients.
Clients, yes.
So the number of endpoints was tens of thousands, I'm certain.
Of individual devices on those endpoints. So it is going to be a massive one when we hear the back end story, and if for their part, Kaseya is being fairly transparent of what's going on as far as the activity taking place right now. But we were, as David said, we've been monitoring their update site and got an update right before we started to record, because we're recording late today. But they're alerting people now. Not only are they having to alert you about the status of what's going on with their attack, but what other criminals are now doing with this attack. So again, if you're not part of this attack, you're still at risk because what other criminals are doing.
Yeah. As I like to say, never let a crisis go to waste. And so, yeah, you have this crisis happening, and now there are other criminal elements who are using this as an opportunity to not just fish, through email, but they're making phone calls.
Yeah.
They're calling. I don't know if they're calling MSPs and potential clients, or
I think they're calling the clients, because that would make more sense.
Yeah.
The MSPs generally know whether they're hit or not, but they could be. But they're sending emails saying, if this is, I'm a Kaseya representative and you need to load this software that I have attached, which, by the way, that software is malware.
Yeah.
And then they're also calling these offices, just picking up the phone and calling people and saying, oh, by the by, we're a Kaseya partner and we're reaching out to help. And
your MSP had asked us to contact you or whatever. I don't know exactly what they're saying, but somebody's going to fall for it. There is no doubt in my mind.
Yeah.
There's going to be somebody.
I'm sure they already have.
Yeah.
With them bringing it up, they're calling up the places and saying, go to this website and download this stuff, rather than sending in phishing email. Yeah. So you actively go and download it.
And it's probably one of those, you got to do this now. Stop what you're doing. You got to do this now. Otherwise, you're going to get infected. It's going to be bad. Imagine what your boss is going to say if you don't do this now. And the person on the phone is like freaking out and doing it. So,
yeah, I've been getting tons of unknown calls on my phone this morning. So I'm sure at least one or two. I've been getting the scam that says, your software license, and it's an automated message where it's like a computer that they don't speak English, and then they put in the text, and then so now you got the computer not speaking normal English on top of that.
Please call us today at 5,
Yeah.
3, 9. Yeah, I love
And
those.
your software now not working. You will be losing use of software for $3.99 payment. Call this number to get rights to software back. What?
Yeah, you didn't understand that?
I know. I'm like, but this is what they're doing. So if you're not in the mix of this, don't get in the mix.
Mm-hmm.
Don't respond to anything. And this will be ongoing now for weeks. So by the time you hear this, it'll still be happening. So we will be sending out as much as we can. Do not participate.
Yeah. Just listen to us. Don't click on anything.
Yeah. just if you get an emotional response to an email or a phone call about your computer, stop. Hang up. Don't click. And call someone who you know and you are initiating a phone call to.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, pick up that phone. I know people hate phones these days, you know.
I've never been a person that likes to talk on the phone. Even
I don't
though it's
either.
my
I can't.
job.
I don't like it either. It's quicker just to send a quick email, quick text, whatever. Getting on the phone. I guess you feel like you have to have a conversation. You can't just say the 5 words and okay, bye. How you doing? How you mom them?
I don't need all the niceties. Just give me what I need.
Just say what you got to say.
Yeah.
But you pick up the phone and call your IT vendor, or if you've got IT on staff, call them. But get your ears on somebody to understand you're dealing with that person. Don't trust email. Don't trust phone calls, text messages from other people and things like that. Talk to the people for yourself to make sure.
Yeah, because they can spoof their emails. They can take over their emails, put a rule in, and be, answering the emails for them.
They can spoof the phone number.
Yeah, they can spoof the phone number and say, and they can spoof a voice. We've seen that. It's pretty straightforward to do. So that's why you want to call someone and be certain that it is the person you're talking to.
Yeah. Even if the caller ID comes up, say, I'm going to call you right back.
Let me call you back in just a minute.
Yep.
So with that being said, don't play around with any of this because this is just the tip of the iceberg more than likely.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when we talk about what happened, you can follow, they've got a timeline, they're publishing it. But the one big question that I have, and they're telling you the facts, but they're not telling you the behind the scenes, is, okay, it was the on-premise server version that was hit, but we also took down our SaaS version, and it's still down. And then along the way, they're telling you, July 5th at 9:30, they were saying we're estimating that, tomorrow we're going to bring the SaaS version back online. And as they say, a final go, no-go decision will be made tomorrow morning between 8 a.m. and noon. But of course, this can change after we go through final testing and validation. And I'm like, if it didn't impact the SaaS. So, yeah. And then you see on the 6th, it says the SaaS deployment, there was an issue that has blocked the release. So we're not going to be doing that. But we'll get back to you. Our R&D and operations people working round the clock. I'm sure they are.
Yeah, I'm sure they are too.
Hopefully they have a proper incident response plan that takes that into account and worries about the feed and care of those individuals.
Yeah, but it does bring up your zero trust radar.
Yes, it does.
It's like if this wasn't affected, why is it down in this manner and having to be apparently updated? Because now trying to turn it back on is being blocked.
Yeah.
By something. So
they stopped it because things are not going well. They found problems.
Yeah. So it just kind of makes me wonder what's going on there. I can understand why they took it down just as an
Right.
abundance of caution, but bringing it back up doesn't seem to be working very well.
Yep. So on the 6th at 10 p.m., they say, our bad, we're not going to be able to roll it out. On the 7th at 8 a.m., they go, yeah, we're still working on this. We'll get back to you. And then on the 7th at noon, they say, we are resolving the issue related to our SaaS infrastructure and plan on beginning to restore services no later than the evening of Thursday, July 8th.
Okay. So that was last night.
That was last night, so you know when we're recording things. So then it's uncertain exactly how this is going to work. But on the evening of the night of the 8th at 5 p.m., it said, it's still not going to happen because they are the intentional compartmentalized design that ensures the security of the remaining 26 modules within their platform, not just the impact to the VSA, because they have a lot of other things.
Mm-hmm.
But at 8 o'clock last night, they still hadn't committed to the SaaS. They've published a run book to prepare for the steps to take once it returns to service. But I do not see the official announcement that it is. They want you to review the run books for the upcoming release as of 9 a.m. July 9th. So it's still an upcoming release. It's still not out. And they've given you the run book. And so we don't know when that thing's going to come back up. Supposedly the on-prem updates are July 11th, which would be Sunday. In the meantime, though, what are the MSPs doing, David?
Freaking out. So I've not talked personally with anybody who this has affected. I've basically just read through forums and Reddit channels.
I wouldn't want to bother them.
No, I haven't. And other private forums. I'm kind of, looking at it from the outside. A lot of MSPs, honestly, there's a lot of them that are pulling together to say, look, if this impacted you, and this is vendors too. Some of them are saying, look, if this impacted you or your customers, we're here to help. Some vendors are offering free stuff to the MSPs to say, here you can use our remote access tool. You can use our platform until you get yours back online. So the community itself seems to be pulling together to really help out on something like this. There are some folks that were scared initially, me being one of them, because we talk about this often where you have a vendor you're doing business with and that vendor gets bought out. Well, this is our case where we have a service that we buy, and initially it was not owned by Kaseya, but Kaseya acquired it. And of course, when this came out, I was like, oh my gosh, please tell me this doesn't affect the other services. The service that we buy from them wouldn't have an effect anyway. The worst thing that can happen would be they mess the service up, but it doesn't connect to our clients. So it wasn't really that concerned about it. But there are email addresses in the service. So I don't want the database of email addresses to get out. But other than that, there's no fear that they have any connection into anything else. But
it's your documentation tool, right?
It's actually just a dark web monitoring tool.
Oh, that's right.
Yep. So, there's really nothing that's going to screw up. But I still don't want them to get any data out of it, even though it's, even though it doesn't connect to us, it doesn't connect to the client. It's an independent thing. It just has email addresses in it. But I don't want that to get out. So I wasn't that concerned about it, but it does make me have to look at it and go, if this tool was compromised, then what are we going to do about it? And we need to notify our clients, I feel like, to say this happened and your email address was in there, just in case you get a call from anybody or you start seeing stuff. So fortunately, doesn't seem like that's the case as far as this particular platform that they have and they've acquired. But again, we say this all the time. When you have tools that you're using in your practice or your MSP and they get acquired, you need to go back and look at doing some type of risk analysis and looking at those things and how those pieces now fit and who they're managed by and all that. It changes the game for you.
Yeah. There's a lot of variables that every MSP, and again, do not regret the day I decided I wasn't doing that anymore.
No, I'll tell you, the MSP community and MSSPs, if you're doing more in the security services like we are, hats off to every one of you, because it's a tough job. We had a client recently that part of some of the things they were complaining about were just some very, very minor reporting issues. Like they didn't like the way the reports that our systems was giving them. And, I was thinking to myself, it's not that reports aren't important, but what is very, very important is the fact that we're protecting you. You've not had a breach. You've not had ransomware attacks. All these things that could end your business, we're knocking it out of the park. But you want to make a big deal because the graph is not designed the way you want it to.
Yeah. Priorities, people. Priorities.
And I say that because if you have an MSP, I mean, not saying that you should just accept everything they do for you and not question things and want them to be better and all that. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, dude, their job is so freaking difficult. Just keeping up with everything that we have to pay attention to protect you as a client it's a job in and of itself. If I did nothing all day but kept up with the threat landscape, it would take up all my time.
Well, I mean, that's basically what we do all the time, is between worried about what our clients should worry about to make sure they're asking people, and then, worried about what the guidance is and all of the other things that are happening. That's why we do what we do, just very specialized. This is all we work on. Because it takes everything we got and some.
Yeah, and that's why when people tell me I don't have an IT vendor and we don't have internal IT and we've got this. I mean, I can't roll my eyes far enough. Because I'm like, no, you don't have this. You so far don't have this. You don't even know you don't have this.
You don't know what you don't know. I just stop breathing when those things happen and just pass out right there in front of them. Is what I want to do.
You have no earthly idea. You're rolling along completely unaware of so much. But anyway, I'm getting off that soapbox. So
for now.
All
anyway.
right. So we did have CISA and FBI guidance came out.
That was then pushed out also by OCR. To the security and privacy list to tell people what they should be doing. And I noted that it is guidance for MSPs and their customers. Not, they're making it clear we're giving this out to you guys as well as the people impacted. But in that discussion, it also mentions MSP customers who do not currently have RMM service. We want to make sure you're doing this, but also everybody should do these things.
Yep.
But the immediate actions and the list, it's what we would expect to see, at least to me. There's a detection tool so that you can see if there's indicators of compromise. They want you to, I love this, enable and enforce multi-factor authentication on every single account that is under the control of the organization, and to the maximum extent possible, enable and enforce MFA for customer-facing services. That's what they want the MSPs to do. Do they do that as well as they're really good at telling everybody else what to do, or do they do that themselves?
It has been my experience that it can be a challenge. I'll say it that way. There's a reason they tell you don't buy a car from a mechanic. It's like they've got all the time in the world to make everybody else's car run, but oftentimes their own gets neglected. Yeah. So
the cobbler's children has no shoes.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not honestly, I'm not taking a shot at MSPs when I say that. It's just that you're spending 1 million hours a week Yes, there are a million hours in a week. Trying to protect everybody else, that oftentimes you don't have time to protect your own house. It's just the nature of what it is. And so
security's not convenient.
No, it doesn't make it right, but it is. It's tough. It's tough to do, because for all the things our clients have to worry about, we have to worry about a multitude more than that.
Yeah.
In addition to multiple clients. So it's, like I said before, it's a tough, very time consuming job. And, when I have conversation with prospects and they say something like, we got a price over here that's half of what you charge. And I'm like, then they can't possibly be doing
what you're doing.
Not even half the work.
Yeah.
I mean, you just can't. They're just not doing it. And that's what scares me. Don't ask me why mine's more expensive. You should really be questioning why theirs is so cheap. But it's a tough job to purchase IT. So, I mean, we can honestly probably do a whole show on that, but.
And we've tried.
Yeah.
But I know that all of this guidance that we're getting, it doesn't make any of that easier.
Mm-mm.
Right? Because,
No.
I mean, what do you do if you're one of the clients that you got hit and your MSP used Kaseya, but Kaseya is like number 1, number 2 of the tools that you should be using to do this if you're an MSP? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's not that they used a tool that was inferior or one of the cheap tools or whatever. I mean, Kaseya is a big company, one of the top ones used for this.
Yeah. So we're not using fly by night.
Yeah. And the other thing too is it's not the MSP's fault.
No, well, and that gets to the next part of, let's talk about what information is coming out about how we got here. And there's some reporting, and again, granted, things change, but I do know that let's just say the folks that we count on to give us solid information, and we've mentioned Krebs on security, we rely on his information and discuss it frequently because it's always very thorough and well documented. Mm-hmm. And well, they check and double check. And then the other is Secure World, where I get information from them because they're the ones out bringing in all the security people together, and they have some great connections through all the security people. Both of them tell stories. They're not stories. Both of them report facts. They're a little stressful because at first when this hit, I thought the criminals screwed up the timing. Is what I thought, because I would have seen them doing this like Friday night, not Friday afternoon. You know what I mean?
Friday night somewhere.
I know, right? But Eastern United States time, it was like, what, 1:30-ish that this news started coming out about it, or the attack started. I don't know, but still Friday afternoon. And I thought they intended that to start at 1:30 that night, and somebody screwed up. Now I'm not sure that it wasn't. They started to believe that Kaseya was going to be able to patch everything, which is what was actually going on behind the scenes. That Kaseya had frantically been trying to patch these vulnerabilities that they had been notified about, and the clock ran out, and they didn't get their cake built. Nailed it. You ever watch that on Netflix? It's so much fun.
No.
I could so see us doing it. That would be a hoot. But anyway, that you've got these 15 organizations, so that's where all of the 1,500 organizations roughly, that's where all of the panic is going. But they're starting to ask, how did we get here?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's interesting that there was something else that also happened on July 3rd that Krebs reported about a security incident response. Mandiant, they probably went looking because they heard what was going on, and then they find another problem. What was it that you were? It was on Krebs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Their billing and customer support site.
Yeah. Mandiant, which a lot of you guys have heard us talk about before, part of FireEye. Their response team, they notified Kaseya that their billing and customer support site, so a page on the internet or a portal on the internet, was vulnerable to a CVE, and it allowed remote users to read any of the files on the server using nothing more than a web browser.
Now, here's the problem. CVE means that's an identified problem, an identified vulnerability that gets an ID code.
Mm-hmm.
And the first 4 digits of the ID code tell you the year that it was identified. David, what are the first 4 digits of the ID code of this vulnerability they found on July 3rd, 2021?
2015.
Okay. So that being said,
Yeah, as it suggests, 6 years later, Kaseya's customer portal is still exposed to this data leak weakness.
yeah, and you can get like usernames and passwords and locations of databases and all kinds of stuff. So this is it's not like, this is a Microsoft patch. It's their own software.
Mm-hmm.
So what was the story?
So they talked to Michael Sanders, who's an executive vice president of account management at Kaseya. He did confirm that was the case. He also confirmed that the portal was taken offline in response to the report, which it should have been. Now, here's the kicker, and this makes me like bang my head against the wall.
Yeah.
The portal had been retired in 2018. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Gone away. They brought in a new portal.
So they weren't
updated
using
everything.
this anymore.
Not using it anymore. Yet somehow it was left online. It was deprecated but left up. WTF, man.
Yeah. so that gets you a little bit. We're not going to go further into that until we hear more. But that this was found when they were looking for the other problem. I am sure at some point right now, the folks at Kaseya, I ain't got time for that.
Yeah. Well,
they got to figure out how that happened.
Yeah. And this is going to be some of the good that comes out of this, is that you'll have so many security teams and security researchers that are going to start looking at Kaseya, or that are looking at Kaseya, and everything about them. Because, honestly, nothing kind of gives you a pat on the back more as a security researcher than to be able to find these things. And then you're able to, use that in your marketing to say, our research team found this. So you'll have a lot of people that's diving in this. So the good of it is a lot of people are going to be poking to see if they can find the holes,
right?
Which is great. Because
both good guys and bad guys.
Yeah. Well, the bad guys are always doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But now the good guys are doing it to try to find them so they can patch the holes in the sinking ship.
Well, and so here, speaking of, in the Secure World article by Bruce Sussman, the article that came out yesterday says there's a little bit more to the story of the vulnerability that was currently used itself. Well, let's see. When was the date? April 6th. April 6th. The springtime. The Dutch Institute for Vulnerability Disclosure.
Divid.
It seems like they should find a way to make it be ditch. But Dutch Institute for Technical Cyber, hell, I don't know. I would like it to be ditch. Anyway, they notified Kaseya that their researchers had found several problems in Kaseya's software. 7 specific security vulnerabilities. okay, you got the minor, you got the easy. That comes up when we do our assessments. There's little things, there's big things, and then there's, holy crap, stop what you're doing and go deal with these things.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where you got what they call the CVSS, the scoring system. And the majority of those vulnerabilities that they discovered scored a 9.8 on a scale of 1 to 10. 0.2 is all they're off from, the whole world should stop until these things are taken care of.
Wow.
I mean, these are critical. They are critical, no doubt about it, with that score. Because the critical identification means attackers can use this to do a lot of damage. It's when we do our risk assessment. Is this a serious problem? And, they were saying, if they get a hold of this, it's going to be bad. It's bad. But, so if you look at it that way, apparently from April 6th, that 4 days later, they released 4 patches. Now they issued 1 patch. Then on May 8th, 3 more vulnerabilities were patched. And at the time, though, the most severe one, which is unpatched, this was the group that was unpatched at the time, that it would allow a hacker to bypass multi-factor authentication and a cross-site scripting bug, which don't worry about that if you're not a nerd, and then credentials leak and business logic flaw. I'm not quite sure what that is, but it's detailed in a 2021 CVE. And that is the 0 day that apparently was used because they were like, this is critical. It's really bad. But at the same time, Kaseya was frantically trying to fix it. And I think that's why they launched when they did, was they thought that they were going to be able to fix it before they could launch this weekend. And they saw them rolling out these updates over the weekend, and they were like, we don't want them to have time. Let's hit it. So you can imagine what it was like for them frantically trying to build a fence and patch that hole before the storm came. That's really just like what it was like, is that we've got a flood coming and we have a hole where we need to block the floodgates.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, they say, what is it that Kaseya's CEO said in the video? This sucks.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I do appreciate how he's come forward. He's kind of been the voice of it instead of putting somebody else in that position. But he's also kind of, let's kick out the whole CEO professional bit and let's just say what it is. It sucks.
Yeah, it sucks. He's like, it's not BS. It's reality. It sucks.
Yeah. And so I can appreciate that, because you don't want to give the whole same static song and dance. Your privacy and security is important to us, and we were taking every measure possible. I mean, that's what we hear every single time. Look, somebody come out and go, you know what? This sucks. We dropped the ball. We hate it for everybody involved. We're doing everything we can. I'm sorry. This sucks. It sucks.
Yeah, now don't go the other way that says this sucks. It's not our fault. Don't do that.
Yeah, we have seen that, I think. Something
something. But the CEO had, and I don't know if you saw this part, but came out and said, we will be providing direct financial assistance to MSPs who have been crippled by these evil people and the new adversaries that we face.
Oh, wow.
So, you got to respect that they're taking care of their clients the best they can. Mm-hmm. They couldn't prevent it, but, Oh, and I did find this, the Dutch, David. Are you okay, David? What's me going on with this, David?
Go ahead.
they were doing scans and they had detected 2,200 potential reachable VSA instances on the internet. And when they did this report on Sunday, it was less than 140 in their most recent scan that they could find. So the fact that it went down to, people were shutting them down, and they were doing the scans every night, and they continue to do so.
Mm-hmm.
But the big picture is the problem is not solved. We still have them, trying to figure out whether they're going to pay the $70 million ransom. Because
what you want to bet one of these servers is sitting in a closet or a data center somewhere, and somebody's forgotten that they used to use it.
Then it's going nuts. But we do know that as much as we hate to talk about ransomware, it is getting worse. It is not getting better. And, there was an article that we were looking at that talked about that they're having, everybody's talking about having, shortages, workforce shortages, and they're having a shortage for negotiators in the ransomware gangs. They need more negotiators because they have 1,500 different businesses trying to reach them through the REvil attack. So they clearly had no idea how many businesses they were going to hit, but at the same time, they have all these people that are now in this position, and they can either restore or they're negotiating. But it seems there was no exfiltration, which is a good thing.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So anyway, I mean, it's tough. It's as much as we love to have the fun cut up episodes, we just don't have more of these that are not so fun to cut up with.
Yeah, these are hard.
I don't like it, but
I mean, you've got multiple layers of victims here.
Yeah, but it just goes to, look, you have to have the open lines of communication with your MSP or your IT team if it's internal, and for God's sake, don't wait on them to reach out to you. One thing that drives me crazy is if somebody says, well, my MSP hasn't had a meeting with me in a year. And I'm like, well, have you asked for one? I mean, I'm not saying they shouldn't be asking you for one, but if you're not getting it, ask for it.
Yeah. Demand it.
Yeah. So
it's key.
Don't wait on them and then get mad because they didn't meet with you. Ask for it. Look, we need to meet. It's like, honestly, my accountant doesn't send me a message every year or says or every quarter or whatever and say, let's meet. I send him one. I'm like, look, it's time to meet. I want to know how things are going. I can read the reports, but, I want your professional opinion on things. And so I ask for those things. And I doubt very seriously that he's proactive with anybody. That's just the way things are. If you want to meet with me, just ask. So, anyway. Enough of that. That is our show for today, folks. Thanks for listening. Remember to share us out. And as always, remember, HIPAA's not about compliance. It is about patient care.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.